warmed up as we go.
Yeah. Um, I guess we ought to just talk about the routine, what the routine was at Mexico, on the trips. That was something I was curious about. What kind of gear did you bring along, and how did the days go?
Well, I think very similar gear to what people bring now, only not as much. We tried to keep people relatively limited as far as short swimming trunks, something long, of course, as far as long sleeves or long pants. Categorically, the boatmen predominantly wore clodhoppers, good old boots like I've got on this morning, but we tried to keep it pretty minimal. I have a couple of old Neville's bags. They're made by Frank Maslin, actually, and you'd put on the Grand Canyon trips, you'd use a ground cloth, a sleeping bag, an air mattress, and a sheet, and that was one pack for your bedtime gear, about and then another one of those for your personal gear. We never, of course, limited photographic things, and people had their ammo cans. We did provide ammo cans, or tell people to get their ammo cans. I don't think we provided very many. We might have had a few, but so pretty similar in many ways. Camps were very much the same. We did everything used the river for everything, as far as noontime lunches, wash your dishes on the sand like we do here. But we had buckets, make a fire, wash the dishes in hot water every night. And historically, the first night out, we'd have at someplace between Badger, Soap Creek, along in there, we'd have steak. And at least the first couple of years, we'd bring one of these big containers with dry ice to keep for ice cream. So we'd have ice cream the first night, which is always kind of a shock to the folks to have ice cream and steak. We had potatoes, eggs, and of course a lot of canned goods later on. Eggs that get flatter and flatter as you go down the river. So pretty soon you'd be mixing them with everything else, cheese, and they got flat by the time you're on down further. We did pack in supplies at Phantom Ranch, and at least on the longer cataract boat trips in the initial years. And later on, we tended to try to carry more ourselves and not bring things in at Phantom Ranch because of the expense, and it didn't really help you that much.
Mm-hmm.
Camp life is very similar. This is the first. I've never sat on a lawn chair in the Grand Canyon or along the Colorado River, so this is a change. But, we always had logs and places to sit.
I guess there was plenty of driftwood.
Driftwood was just the greatest thing in the world. We burned quite a bit. Anytime there was a big pile, we'd probably stop and burn it. Let the passengers join the Driftwood Burners Association. You have one match, and with natural means, grass or dry grass or little twigs, you have one chance on one boat trip to join Driftwood Burners Association. But I think we're pretty liberal on the rules, and everybody got their chance at igniting horrendously big driftwood fires if they could beat the boatmen, if they could beat us.
What was the theory on burning that wood?
Well, we were not able to take out at Diamond Creek. We had to go to Pierce's Ferry or clear across the lake, which we did with the Esmeralda and the cataract with the Esmeralda in '50. And the upper areas of the Lake Mead were just inundated with miles and miles of driftwood. It was a morass of. You spend a day or so trying to get through it. It was just submerged partially, sticking up, and it was a real tough one. We used oar power occasionally, once on one or two trips to get down to Pierce's Ferry, but even that was a tough go. It's just a lot of driftwood, lots and lots of drift, especially out on the upper lake.
Have you seen how has the corridor changed? Have you seen the river corridor change? I mean, are the beaches different? What's different down here from the way it used to be?
Well, the biggest difference that I saw in '65, which was my first trip after the dam, and then this trip, which is now '94, is the degradation of the sandbars, or the elimination of the sandbars this far on the trip, and I have no reason to believe that it won't be that way all the way through. Pretty much, the sandbars did change from year to year. Rapids would change from year to year, but flow to flow. But we had some huge sandbars that were just beautiful, white. No grass would grow on them, of course, because they'd flush out and they build up, and so you didn't have much growth on the sandbars, but they were, at least on the lower stretches of the sandbars, but they certainly lowered in level and volume and extent, and some have been just virtually eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
That is a significant difference, I think, that I expected, we all expected, and when the dam went in, we're not novices in rivers, and we know sandbars, we know what clear water does, and it's just going to go.
Do you think that that's what will happen? Do you think these will all eventually go, or do you think we can get a handle on this?
Well, I would hope that they'll get a handle on it, whether it's by something which is going to require some food on the beach in front of the passengers and act like we were barfing at the same time, and it made everybody sick. You want to relax?
Well, it sounds like you guys had a lot of fun.
Oh, we did. Lots and lots of fun. Lots of laughs and ha-has. And
What were you saying you were going to come back to? We were talking about the beaches and stuff.
Yeah, come back to beaches. I really think that it's not beyond the realm of possibility, or it's not beyond belief that we could, by some type of a conduit, bring sand or sandy water, sandy flow from the San Juan and the Colorado through a submerged conduit.
Shit. I'm sorry, you guys.
It's all right. Take care of yourself. There still needs to be some means, whether it's a conduit or otherwise, to get sand back into the river, notwithstanding Trout Unlimited or the other or environmental people, because the river was murky and muddy before. The sandbars were here before, and I realize it's a political hot potato, but somebody will have to stand up for it sometime and do something to replenish the beaches. I see no alternative for it. Otherwise, over the next, not necessarily even generations, but over it won't take many to deplete further much of the sand that's here, that's remaining. That has been a significant change.
So let's see, you did these trips in the early 50s.
That's correct.
And then when was the last one there? There was, I know you said this before, but I think I forgot.
Well, 57 or 58 was our last trip to the Grand Canyon before I went down with Stavely in 65.
And that was your last trip?
That's correct. It's been that long. It's been 29 years, I guess. I didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm. Did you see a lot of change in 65?
Well, yes. I felt the sandbars were going down then, even. And they'd had a few years of no runoff with the filling of Lake Powell. So there really had been pretty much a good closure for at least 3 years or so, 2 or 3 years, I suppose. And even the buffer dam, or whatever they call it, had to have affected the flow of silt through the river from whenever they put it in up there. I don't know the dates on those things exactly, but we know it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So you have not had a good resource to get sandbars build up except for what comes in from the side streams or from the debris flows and the flash floods in the Little Colorado. But you're missing 99% of it that comes down down the Colorado River.
What did you what did you think of the Bureau of Reclamation? And has that changed?
The National Park Service was the only people we dealt with at that time, and if we can put them in the same category, we dealt with them. We'd call them and tell them we were leaving on a trip and tell them how many, and but it was pretty loose.
Mm-hmm.
We tried to get along with them. We had some controversies with the retrieval of the Esmeralda. They wanted it, and we wanted it, and Ed Hudson had verbally called the Park Service and said if the Esmeralda ever shows up in Lake Mead, it belongs to them, or they can have it.
Oh.
But
and where did that boat end up?
in the Park Service.
Is it up there in the?
It's up in the gathering dust someplace in the corner of either a building or a storage shed or something. I saw it one time, and my brother and one of the boatmen tried to retrieve it one time at the South Rim, and an evening of frivolity, and the Park Service showed up and didn't let them bring it, take it home. If we'd have just taken it with us, it'd have been fine. If we'd just taken it back to Colorado, I think we could have probably, if we'd had any, we salvaged it. It was probably legally our boat, and it certainly hasn't done the Park Service any good. They don't show it.
Yeah, because it's not. I guess it's not out there at the visitor center.
No, it's not the visitor thing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The old Higgins landing craft is what the Esmeralda was, but that's another story.
Well, how's this trip strike you?
My words just cannot describe it, and I mean it. I just cannot, Jeff. I just can't describe the feeling that I have coming back here. It's just a lot of nostalgia, and almost brings tears to your eyes when I saw the Cataract boat fixed, or when you see it on the trailer coming down to Lee's Ferry, or it's just like the old song we always sang, "Back in the Saddle Again." It's kind of it just does that to you. And I think I tweaked Joni Neville's this morning. We had normally we shaved every day. Boatmen shaved every day. I think it had been a Neville's philosophy. I never ran with Neville's, but I inherited these things through Jim and Frank, that generally the boatmen shaved every day. They always said, whatever the tradition, it may have gone back to Eddie for all I know. Supposedly it improved the morale of the troops, according to Eddie, but they did it because they wanted to be clean shaven before any rapids, and felt that you didn't want to end up in the river unshaven or whatever. But anyway, as I shaved down as I washing up this morning on the Cataract boat, just Joni tells me that he said it just really reminded her of her dad and the Jim and the boatman that used to run. Really, I think it really got her. Kind of gets me too. Just little things like that are the tradition. It's just a tradition that we had, and certain things you did. But the trip, you asked me what the trip's been like. It's just been absolutely wonderful. Just outstanding, and great people, as all river trips are and should be. Great people, and lots of years of river running there with those people that are on this trip. You've got lot of vast wealth of knowledge that needs to be tapped and get their stories. I don't feel like an old timer myself, but these people have a lot of years of river.
You don't even look like an old timer.
Well, I don't feel like one, I hope.
Oh, I wish that plane had.
We've been counting the aircraft. Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Let's just, maybe if we just pat our foot for a second and let that guy get out of reach. I'm wondering, usually when we do these things, I always get up and, shut it down and get up and walk away, and 10 minutes later think of something some question that, oh God, why didn't I ask that? Why didn't we cover that topic? I wonder what that is for this one. I wonder what we're forgetting to get into. I mean, just as far as stuff that's important to record. Can
Well, there's been a lot of things that have been recorded. Of course, we've talked about a lot of things. The Esmeralda was kind of a unique thing. It had been cast adrift, and it had relatively high water. By the time we found it, it was not quite this high up from the water, but it was almost that high on kind of a rocky sandy beach. And we, standing upright, we pulled in. That was on the lower half, of course, in 1950, and everything was there: maps, gear, gasoline, including the places where gasoline was stashed on down the river. Jim, being quite mechanically oriented, turned it on and things started right up. Without even a hesitation, the Esmeralda started right up. But the problem was that it wasn't making full power. But after it started up, we decided, well, if it runs this good, we can take it out. So we got our crew, all the passengers and everybody, and turned it on its side, got a bunch of logs, and gradually were able to pull it down to the river. And down the river, got it into the water and on it upright, and cranked it up again and backed off. And we were not powerboat experts at all. Jim took over the powerboat, and I took over his boat. And
was that before you'd ever run powerboats? Was that the first?
Well, we didn't have any experience with powerboats
at that point.
No motorboat experience or powerboat experience. But I don't know that Jim had any particular. I'm not aware of it. We know nothing like this, of course. But it would only go up about half power, 3/4 power. The first night out, we took it and went on down the river through on down several rapids there, and it just didn't quite have the oomph that you wanted. That night, Jim and Frank pulled off the head and found a blown gasket, just about a half an inch between two of the cylinders. And they made a little patch from the edge of the head gasket, put it in between the two cylinders, wrapped it with cellophane, with gum wrapping, aluminum gum wrappings, and made a perfect fit in it, wedged and such so it matched and wouldn't blow. Put the head back on, cinched it down tight, cranked it up, and it ran perfect. And we took it on out. We'd never run lava or anything else along the way. The water was falling, was considerably lower than it had been when they took off. And I think that's kind of a unique experience for us, was Esmeralda. It came off in great shape. Actually, we took it clear across Lake Mead. We didn't pull it out at Lee's Ferry or at the Pierce's Ferry or any place. We went clear across the lake with it, and we wanted to prove that we could get it out, and we did. We were the only group that I know of that started with 4 boats and came out with 5.
Pretty good.
So we feel we salvaged the boat, and I think we had a feeling it should have been ours, but we didn't want to get crossways with the Park Service, and they were the ultimate controllers of the river and the trips.
I wonder who that was. Who was the super then?
I don't know. I used to know their names, but I don't know. Chris Christensen was up on the North Rim, and we used to go up there frequently, and he was just a prince of a guy, but he was not the one that was controlling the park and who's down here. And I know their names. I've known their names in the past, but I don't recall them now.
Well,
1950.
If you had to pick what was the best part of it, of this whole thing for you, could you do it?
As far as the river era?
Just, if you could,
I think the best part of it was the people. Not to take away from the Grand Canyon, I don't mean that, but what made the trips were the people. They're good people. And of course the beauty, the solitude, the quietness. People came down with worries and of the world, ulcers or whatever, and they went out rejuvenated, feeling better. You try to have a good time and take a different perspective on life, and it does that for you. The Grand Canyon is awesome. We all can describe that in our own words, and I don't know that you can, but the people made the trips, and it was just a fun time for all.
Okay. guess we better pack this stuff up.
Good luck.
Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you. Really was a people, I think. I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But it has to be something in there. But it's just, sure you can say, was a speed run the greatest, or the Esmeralda the most high point, or just, but it's really the people. Or being in the Grand Canyon is a high point too, but we can all, anyone can do that if they want to. Anyone can do that. We had some harrowing experiences, but wonderful fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.